In section 4.3, which is called Solving Inequalities Using Multiplication and Division, your goal for today is to be able to solve inequality using multiplication and division. That's why your title actually tells you what you need to do by the end of this lesson. So there's only one rule that you need to follow when you are dealing with inequalities with multiplying and dividing. So it says when multiplying or dividing by a negative number, so when you multiply divide by a negative number, you must flip the inequality symbol. So you're going to be flipping your inequalities today. So here's example number 1. In example number 1, you are going to solve and graph. The problem I want you to solve will be x is being divided. X over 3, which is x divided by 3, is less than negative 2. So we're going to keep doing what we've been doing, solving equations, but now this is with inequality symbol. So to get x by itself, which is your goal, you're going to do the opposite. So x is divided by 3, so opposite of dividing by 3 is multiplying by 3. So we are going to multiply both sides by 3. And if you notice, we multiplied by 3 to both sides. And because we multiply by a positive number, this inequality stays as greater than. And then when I multiply both sides, 3's cancels out. 1 times x is x is by itself, and then negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. So when I look at my rule, did I multiply by a negative number? I would say no, so the symbol, inequality symbol, stays the same. So this is the number you're looking for when you're determining whether to flip this inequality. So now once this is your answer, what we're going to do is we're going to graph our solution. So here's our number line. And because this is greater than, this is an open circle. And the greater than side is to our right. Example number 2. In example number 2, we're going to solve, graph, and this time we are going to check. In this problem, we got 3 is less than or equal to negative 3 over 5x. So same thing. Our goal is to get x by itself. So normally you would want to divide by negative 3 over 5. But dividing by negative 3 over 5 is same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So we're going to multiply both sides by 5 over negative 3. Multiply that by 5 over negative 3. So we're going to put this over 1. So if you notice, this is the number that we multiplied by 5 over negative 3. And that number is negative, so we have to flip this inequality and make it greater than or equal to. So now when we multiply it out, negative 3's cancels out, they become 1's. 5's cancels out, they become 1's, and 1 times x times 1 is x. X is by itself. And then if you notice, 3 goes into 3, 1, so 5 divided by negative 1 is negative 5. Now we have our solution. And then now when we graph, here's negative 5, negative 7, negative 6. Now when we read it from the variable side, x is less than or equal to negative 5. So because it's or equal to, it's in closed circle. And x is less than, so we shade to the left. Now here's the check part. You always rewrite the original problem. And the original problem was 3 is less than or equal to negative 3 over 5x. Now we're going to come over here. This is where the x's are. X is on the left side, the less than side. So you're going to pick any number that are less than negative 5. Oops, my number line is wrong. This should be negative 6, and this would be negative 4. So now when I pick a number, I have 3 is less than or equal to negative 3 over 5. And I'm going to pick a number, so I'm going to pick negative 6 because that's less than negative 5. And then when I put this over 1, what I get will be then 3, So when you check this is the question, is 3 less than or equal to whatever you do to here? So this negative 3 times negative 6 is 18 over 5, which is same as 3 and 3/5. And is 3 less than or equal to 3 and 3/5? It checks. So I shaded correctly. I double check my number line to make sure that I label them correctly. Example number 3. So in example number 3, I'm going to solve and graph. The problem is negative 4x is less than 24. Now in this one, it's negative 4 times x. So to get x by itself, I'm going to do the opposite. And opposite of multiplying by negative 4 is dividing by negative 4 to both sides. And if you notice, I divided by a negative number, so I got to flip my inequality. So make it a greater than. This cancels out, so 1 times x is x, and 24 divided by negative 4 is negative 6. And that's my solution. So now to graph it, negative 6, negative 7, negative 5. And because x is greater than negative 6, I'm going to have an open circle, and the greater than side will be the negative 5 side. And that's your solution. So remember, when you divide by or multiply by a negative number, you must flip the inequality. Last example. Example number 4. A word problem. Now this time we're going to put together a word problem, write our own inequality, and then we're going to solve. This says I have a budget of $160 to spend for fuel for a trip. I want to know how many times can I fill up my tank if it costs $25 each time. I want you to write and solve. So remember to write, before we write, we have to define. So I'm going to write my define. And what I have to define is what I have to solve for. And it says how many times I can fill up. So I'm going to let x be the number of times to fill up my tank. Now I'm going to give you some key pointers here. The word each, or if you see the word per, these means multiply. So I see that magic word here, 25 each time, or $25 per each time I fill up. So I know that I got to multiply 25 by the time, and we said x stands for time, number of times. And remember, if I have a budget, I can't spend more than 160, so I'm going to have to spend less than or equal to 160. So I'm going to write less than or equal to $160. And on this side is right here, $25 each time, so 25 times x. So there's my inequality. Now I solve. Well, to get x by itself, this is multiplying, so you do the opposite by dividing the both sides. So x is less than or equal to 6.4 times. And because I have to fill up the maximum amount of time, as I have a maximum of $160, I can only fill up 6 times. And take 6 times will be my answer. So by end of this lesson, you should be able to solve inequalities using multiplying and dividing.